Alright, let's see what we can do with a holiday type of scene using some various different types of media for to give us some different holiday effects. On a composition that I've done several times, but this one will have a little bit of a twist to it. So a lot of people like that scene that I'll be getting to, and people bought those stamps to use them in that fashion. I'll show you how to use them in a little bit of a different way. Alright, now we're just going to go for something really basic here, a bit real swatchy background, okay? But I'll show you how you can kind of give a little bit more kind of spirit and life to your background, okay? Instead of just doing kind of a more of a straight line type of application of inks, okay? What we'll do is we'll create a little bit of a dynamic and flow to the background, okay? And instead of, I'm oftentimes bringing in inks like this, kind of in a horizon, kind of a straight line type of thing, but let's go with a little bit of a different spirit here, okay? Now there's all kinds of different things, there's no right or wrong here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in like this, and I'm going to try to do this real kind of gestural S-curve approach to this, okay? Now what I'm using here is just some Distress ink tumbled glass dye-based ink, okay? And I'm applying it onto some glossy cardstock. When you use the re-inkers like this, there's so much ink that goes onto your tips here. Whatever applicator you happen to be using, I'm using a Stylus Tools sponge tip right here. You can use a paper towel or something like that, or any type of thing, any type of sponge. I've even used a kitchen sponge recently, just to show that you can make do with all kinds of household items, okay? I even tried a cotton ball. I didn't like the cotton ball too much. It's just, it wasn't as absorbent, so... I mean, it did kind of work, though. It just required a little bit of a different effort. I found it better once it worked better once it got a little bit soaked. So, anyways, you can do it, though. Alright, so anyway, kind of filling this in. See that right there? You still see that kind of S-curvy type of thing there? Alright, now, needless to say, I don't know, or maybe it does need to be said that there are all kinds of variations that, you know, you can achieve with this type of approach right here, okay? Don't even worry about, you know, the background. Just get it a good application of ink and you'll be fine, okay? Now with this first color, I'm going for not only coverage, okay? I want things to be kind of streaky, okay? I don't want to just apply S-curve, you know, an S-curvy type of motion and then just cover everything up uniformly, okay? I want it kind of streaky, and that's the whole purpose of doing this kind of approach to color application, ink applications, okay? Not just to fill up the whole thing in this motion and then it looks completely uniform. You want it kind of streaky and irregular, okay? So, that being said, in the end result, hopefully that will, you know, it'll pay off dividends, you know, in terms of our real gestural brush-like approach to this. Mermaid Lagoon, okay, it's kind of a medium tone. I'm using these Distress inks too. These I don't even have the pads for some of these ones, like the tumbled glass and the Mermaid Lagoon. I just bought the re-inkers for these ones because I didn't think I would be stamping imagery out in those colors, so I figured instead of getting a pad and re-inker, I just got the re-inker, and that way I can get more colors of ink, okay? I buy my pads just like anyone else. Okay. It's getting pretty soaked over in this direction. You know, if I touch it all, you know, it'll come off on my fingers. Okay, so going on with a darker color, we're kind of working from, you know, light to dark, and that's why, you know, I didn't have to clean off this tip here, okay? That tumbled glass is not going to pollute my darker color, okay? Alright. Looks like it's getting kind of windy or something like that, like a snowstorm or something, huh? So you can probably squeeze some of that ink. Yep, there's plenty in there, so sometimes that's an easy way to apply it. Don't do that on your first color, but when you start building up colors like that, you can actually squeeze quite a bit of ink out, and you can just blend it in like that, and it makes for a really quick and smooth process. Use a little bit less pressure too, don't rush it. Don't try to get darker by scrubbing really hard, you know. It's not going to do it. Just what you want to do is you want to apply inks very lightly so that they're building up on there. And then as you come over here and work in a different area, that ink that you apply there is kind of soaking in a little bit. So give it a little bit of time to do what it does. You know, kind of stain and penetrate. That's how dye-based inks work. They stain on the surface. All right, let's go with the blueprint sketch. It's pretty dark. I'm wondering in my head, I just got this one and I haven't worked with it too much. I love it, but it's so dark. I'm going through my head right now. I'm wondering if I should be using kind of a preliminary color before I get to this one right here, you know, just so I don't have to clean this tip off right here. I'm thinking about, I don't know if I have a, what is this one right here? Broken China. I don't even know what colors I got recently. I just got a bunch of these relatively recently. Okay, let's go with this one. I forgot all about that one. I forgot all about it. It sits right in front of me all the time. It's kind of buried in a bunch of inks over here, but let's give this one a shot. It looks a little touch. It looks like it has a little bit of yellow in it, you know, green. It's kind of interesting as I apply this. It almost feels like it has a different chemistry to it. I don't know if it does. Look at that, but I like that kind of. I don't know, it might just be where the ink got onto my tip here, but yeah, it seems to go on a little bit differently. Okay, there's nothing there, so if I go like that, let me see. You can do little squiggles if you want to, I guess. Alright, actually I like those streaks in there, so maybe I'll try to retain them. It's starting to look like resin or something like that, huh? You see those videos on resin. It's like resin. There's a whole like genre of videos that are about resin, which I guess isn't any different than like rubber stamps, right? It's always interesting to see videos out there. This is just all kinds of viewing opportunities. You can watch channels where they have some guy has some kind of industrial grinder and he's just dropping things through the grinder, you know. These big metal teeth grinding away at things. Alright, let's try the blueprint sketch. I'm kind of hesitant to go over this area right here because I want that to kind of soak in a little bit so I can retain those kind of heavy streaks like that. Okay, here comes the blueprint sketch. There's a really different kind of tone to this blueprint sketch. When I applied it, even though it's a kind of a darker version, it's that kind of indigo look to it. It's blue, but I find it doesn't relate to a lot of the tones, even like navy sometimes when I put it on there. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but you know, when it comes to incorporating this color in, I I kind of keep in mind some of the things that I found out before with it. See, like that, it's really separate from the background. Or even, I say the background, but even just the color right before it. The chemistry of it feels different, too. Right? Alright, so that being said, I'm looking at this. I think I do want some kind of color to blend in with this right here. Just to kind of incorporate it in a little bit more. Maybe, I don't know. In terms of the incorporation. That looks stupid. That looks okay. As I keep doing this, it blends in a little bit more. It kind of spreads out the ends a little bit. Maybe I can try some Memento. London Fog. Lulu Lavender. Paris Dusk. What's that? All these different colors out there. All these. I like the naming schemes, don't get me wrong, but Paris Dusk, I read Paris Dusk. I don't know what color it is. Is that like a bluish tinge, or is it lavender? I don't know. I don't know what Paris Dusk looks like. So let's just go with it. I don't know. Whatever color it is, we're using it. It looks like a light blue. Okay, now remember, this is Paris Dusk and the blueprint sketch on this pad, so it's kind of creating an intermediate. Okay, now Memento inks go on differently. They're just there's a different chemistry to it. I keep using that word, but I don't know, I can't think of another word for chemistry there. There's a different binder to it. So when you're doing things like this with so much color saturation, it becomes very apparent kind of the differences between especially the viscosities of different inks and really different brands, but you can run into different colors that are even different from one another in terms of the kind of the ink thickness within a line. So it's always one of those things you kind of have to play around with it. I wouldn't say one, it's like it doesn't kind of get in the way of what you're going after with it, but it is a little bit different. So when you play around with different papers like this, like I do, and different inks, there's going to be a little bit of a different characteristic between what you're... Oh, here's Caribbean Blue. Alright, I'm going to use that one. Caribbean Blue is a really great one. Boy, I have a lot of ink on this at this point in time. These sponge tips can really hold a lot of ink. Alright, now I'm not going to bother getting out, some of these darker tones out of this one. I tell you what, let me see. I'm just going to drip some right on here, like so. Okay? About 3 dots. Now, if I was doing that on to just a white piece of paper, it would kind of soak in. I'd probably see those dots, but we've created quite a bit of a barrier on the paper with all those saturated tones on there at this point in time, so I don't need to worry about it. I can just apply it right down. Okay, now the Caribbean Blue has this warmth to it, just like the warm waters of the Caribbean, right? So I like that kind of glow that you achieve when you would apply analogous colors. Okay, those are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel together. It creates a color glow, orange and yellow and red and orange and blue and green. Okay. So it kind of creates a bit of a saturation. It looks like, I don't know, like the light is coming through from within the piece, okay? You can do it through the use of value, light to dark, but you can also play around with things like temperature and analogous colors to create that kind of effect. You know, I'm always trying to depict lighting within a scene, so you know, you have to kind of use the tools that are available to you, which is contrast, you know, in order to make something look light. You have to make something within the scene or next to the object. If you put something darker next to it, it'll make those objects that are lighter than it seem lighter by contrast. So we're always kind of playing around with those types of things, and temperature is a really good way to do it too. Within kind of cool fields, you can add a little bit of a warm, you know, tone, or a warmer tone than one, and it'll seem warmer by contrast, especially when you're working with a, you know, large field like this one. This is a half-page scene, by the way. I think I forgot to mention that. But anyways, okay, so this is going with black right here, and see, I'm just going on the corners right here. I'll go with this one, because this is supposed to be kind of this light traveling down there, so it's kind of hard to apply this now because the page is just so wet. So when I'm applying a wet ink onto a wet surface, it's not transferring over because the surface isn't absorbing all of that ink so fast. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of building it up little by little. If I wipe into it, I'm almost rubbing off ink, wiping, you know, off the surface. It is going in there pretty good, but it is taking a little bit of time. So you're just building up. There's little micro beads of ink like this when you do it kind of more of a tapping motion. That's where the sponges work out, like at this stage, better than say something like a paper towel. I guess a paper towel you can kind of dab it down too, but the paper towels are more absorbent, and you know, that ink will kind of go back into a wadded up paper towel, where this sponge, you know, you can kind of still squeeze it out onto the surface of your stamping surface, whatever you're using. It doesn't have to be glossy cardstock, okay? Alright, so there we go, something like that. See that right there? Little darker edges like that. It gives it kind of this vignette type of feel. It contains the imagery, whatever you have going on the inside there. And it also creates that nice contrast if you are going for something that is a scene in which you're depicting some sort of lighting from within. Okay, kind of going in and creating these streaks. Okay, I have the sponge right here. I'm using the edge of it as opposed to using the whole thing. I have it on an angle like this, okay? So I'm creating this thin streak like that, and I just keep working that thin streak like that. See that right there? And I get that nice tapered dark to light and thick to thin application, because I'm going like this, and like a pendulum. I'm coming off of it like that, okay? I'm not going like this and then up. You're doing this type of thing. So see, this is the natural motion of your hand too, so it's nice and ergonomic. And you always want to work in a nice ergonomic fashion mode, you know, when you can, when you do repetitive motions of any sort. Conscious awareness of your body position, your shoulders, kind of the distance at which you're working from your body, and work in a nice comfortable motion, okay? I feel that the pieces come out much more graceful as a result, and of course it's just better for all of your joints, muscles, tendons, everything. Okay? Alright, so Alright, actually this is getting drier over here, so it's accepting of more ink. See that right there? Let's see if I can zoom in here and see that right there? See how much darker it got? Because the ink is setting up fairly quickly. Yeah, there we go. Much darker. Now you don't have to go real dark. You could have kept this at a pastel too. I'm going a little bit more extreme. It's easier to see in the videos sometimes what's happening with, with a little bit more contrast. I wouldn't say that doing these video dictates, kind of what I'd be doing anyways, but on a scene like this I think it would help, so maybe I'll go a little bit darker than, what I need to, just because I'm videotaping this and the things that I'm going to be getting to will just show up better as a result, hopefully. Okay, so we have this background in here now. I don't know what that looks like. It looks like marble or something like that. If this was done in oranges or something like that, and browns, it would look like a Jupiter to me or something like that with that, I forgot it, that great eye. It's not the eye. I forgot what it was called, but anyway. Okay, so we have our trees. Which way is up and which way is down? That way looks pretty good too. I think like that, I don't know. Our trees are going to be coming up around this way, and then we're going to put some Christmas lights on them. I don't know, it sounds silly, but I think it's could be a fun little effect to do here. So let's give it a try. I don't know. Little twists on some kind of existing compositions. I would love to stamp these trees now in a versifying black, okay? This is just so dark and rich and black. I love it. But with what I'm going to be doing on these trees, I cannot wait for this thing to set up and dry completely. It's going to take a day or two probably to completely dry. And plus I'm not even sure how this will accept things like the white gel pen and white pigment ink applied over the top of it. I think it might kind of pollute the over application of media on top of it with the media that I'm going to be using. So that being said, actually I could use the VersaLine and probably allow it to dry and then spray seal it and then apply those things, but no, I'm not going to do that right now. Alright, this black is a little bit dry. I haven't applied new ink since I did a bunch of convention demos, so let me just apply some, re-ink this. Alright, a couple extra bottles. Oh, this one's gray. Okay, so re-inking pads, you want to ink it up pretty well. I put in a little bit more in there because I want these images to be really strong in their silhouette, okay? Because it is such a dark background in there. We want our images to stamp out nice and bold and strong against that background, okay? Alright, so I'm picking a kind of a vanishing point right here. We're going to do this North Star type of thing. I'll put that North Star kind of right back in here, okay? So let's say that's kind of like, well, let's go rule of thirds. Okay, so this is like here or something like this, okay? 1, 2. All right, so I'll place it right about right here. So anyways, I'm going to be aiming my trees, so this tip right here, at that location, okay? Maybe I'll put a little dot there. Tiny one, okay? And we'd want to point all of these trees right at that little dot. I saw this design by this company. I shouldn't be laughing about it, but they did this kind of similar type of thing. I think they probably saw some samples, but one thing whoever designed it didn't know about a vanishing point, so that their trees are all kind of pointed in all different directions. They're not sharing the same vanishing point. I wish they would have asked me, because it was all off. All the trees, everything has to be kind of pointing to the same vanishing point. And all you have to do is you can put a little dot there or something like that, so you know where they're all kind of pointing at. It's like I don't know what to say. It's what it's called. It's a vanishing point. Say it's single point perspective is what this is kind of representing, or it does represent. So it's all kind of pointing to this one little area right here. Okay. And what I'm trying to do is, it's from this this application of trees like this. It's representing something where someone's at a very low vantage point, and they're looking up into the sky. Sometimes it's like when someone could be lying on the ground, and looking up there if they want to. Alright, let's see. No, I'm just eyeballing it, of course. I'm not being real, anal about kind of my placement of, or my angle. I'm just kind of eyeing up this longer one right here, because the stamp design itself is not going up into perspective. It's like a side view, straight on. So I'm just kind of faking it right here in terms of the perspective on it. Okay, let's see here. So some of them are a little bit off, and I can tell, but not like by the extreme, at least. See that right there? It's kind of, we're lying on the ground, gazing up at the night sky. Something that I always love doing if I am outdoors or something like that once in a while, camping out, or I don't know, sitting in the backyard. I don't do that too often, but often if I'm out in the desert or something like that. Okay, so how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 impressions. I mean, you can go with however many you want. Okay, now this looks kind of weird on its own, so what you do is, if you notice, everything's like equally spaced right here, alright? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here, and we're going to add some kind of groupings a little bit more. Okay, so I'll just use, I don't know, like a tip of it right here. So see that? It just kind of adds a little bit of variation. Well, we're going to be adding more too with another design here, but okay, I'm looking for that dot that okay, there it is right there. Pointing. I don't bring a ruler out or something like that. I don't think that, that's too much tedium there. You don't need to do, like that. So just kind of like eyeball it. I do kind of establish where that dot is every time I'm making an impression here, because I keep losing it. Okay. See, I think that sky against that the trees here, the foreground, is made fairly strong by the use of all these dark images. So we are covering up, yeah, but it is serving to enhance the imagery behind it. or not the imagery, but the surface behind it. And you can see where, like I said, whatever you get in the background, don't even worry about it. If it doesn't look as smooth as you wanted it to, I mean, there's all kinds of things that came up unexpectedly with me on this one right here. I didn't expect that kind of texture in there. It's kind of swirly or something like that. It's kind of a harder texture, but it all looks good. When it represents some sort of kind of variations happening within the sky. Okay, now I have this taller leafless pine tree that'll hopefully kind of break up this monotony that's happening within the piece. I think it looks okay though, but I just really like the use of some different types of textures. Okay, let me see. There it is right there. Sometimes I make these taller pines a little bit, or these bare leafless pines a little bit taller than the other ones. That's what I often see out in nature. The tallest ones are kind of the most, they're dead. They got too old or whatever. Or they were, subject to, lightning strikes and whatever fires. Once they reach a certain point, that lightning's going to find, that path, to the, what is it, the closest object or whatnot. Okay, let's see. Always kind of reestablishing point. Oh, this is, on that design that I saw, these branches were going like vertical and horizontal here too. It looked really weird. Okay, let's see. Kind of vary it, don't always go like the same, distance. Kind of play around with it a little bit. Okay. So it's kind of varying it a little bit more, right? I really want to continue this on, but I think I might have to wait for these images to dry before these tree impressions to dry before I start putting in some gel pen work on them. They're just too wet. It's really because I just re-inked that pad too, so... Anyways, you see that right there, what we're kind of getting at. I really love that. I think it makes for a fairly dramatic piece. And I mean, okay, now I can use that same leafless pine, but I'm going to use a little bit of a smaller one here, just so we can get a little bit of scale working in here and go for a little bit of variation. But like I said, you can use the other one too, and just use the tip. Okay, so here's a much smaller one here. Go like so. All right. Okay, there we go. I think that looks pretty good. It's pretty dead forest, yeah, but it makes for a pretty good, interesting silhouette, I believe. Okay, so, with what I'm going to be doing in here, I think there might be more contrast if I don't do what I'm thinking about doing next on this, which is splatter painting it with some bleed-proof white. Alright, I was going to be doing some extra imagery in here too. And I'm wondering if I should stamp those first. I have a hard time stamping over the bleed-proof white because they're raised little bumps on here, a very absorbent, very chalky types of watercolor paint. All right. And I can buff them off where I stamp some images, but I think I'm going to stamp my imagery in here first. Okay, pausing video. Alright, I have this eagle and the eagle soaring stamp right here. They're kind of small images, but anyways, I find that these kind of focal points up in the sky make for a really dramatic addition to this, I don't know, really any type of sky imagery. Actually, this isn't really sky imagery, it's just, I don't know, a textured background representing the sky, right? But I guess you kind of create your own imagery when you do that type of, you know, real kind of textured types of marks using whatever type of media you're working in. You know, do all kinds of things, you know, with your backgrounds. Of course, you would adjust your medium, your media, according to the look you want. And you would adjust your surface depending on the media you're working in. But you can get all kinds, you can do the same composition right here. Like with oxide backgrounds and whatnot. I saw this fantastic, I don't even remember what she just used, but it's on the Facebook Stampscapes group. And I don't know, she was spraying surfaces and putting, you know, the paper on it and rubbing it around like, I don't know, you just check out the video. I'm doing a really poor explanation of her process right there, but there's a video of it, and it's stunning results and a really cool and fun looking process to it. But that type of look would look really great here too. Sorry, I can't explain it. It's just this kind of this amorphic, I don't know, cloudy looking bag. It looked really realistic too to me, but you can achieve it, you know, using all kinds of different colors. Okay, so let's see what we can have here. Okay, this is the Dr. Martens bleed-proof white. Okay, comes in a little jar, and it is an opaque watercolor. Now, I just used this like a couple days ago, so I didn't need to add any water to it, but usually you reconstitute it every time you use it, and you kind of stir it up to get the consistency that you want. You don't want it too watery, you don't want it too thick. I don't know. Something like I always say something like a real thick maple syrup or something like that. Maybe it's a little thicker than that. Like a real maple syrup, not like a, you know, syrup, you know, maple flavored, whatever. Okay. Alright, now this is going to represent kind of a stars and snow in here at the same time, so I do want to get some kind of textured, kind of galactic, galaxy type of application of stars here. I'm going to try to do, when I apply this, I don't have it right over my scene like that. I usually want it kind of splattering out that, you know, whatever direction I'm kind of going in. And I don't just go like that, you know. I'm usually just barely moving my thumb one little thing at a time. See this right here? It's just letting out like a couple little hairs at a time. I let out that many right there for that initial kind of spray right there, okay? You kind of have to figure out which way it's going to. It might kind of go in different directions on you at times. I'm getting kind of a wide spray pattern right now too, so. Getting a little variation. I'm getting some bigger ones, big and small on here. Okay. Just move your card in a direction. I think I'm going to scratch some of that off of my eagles there. I don't want it too much on there. But it'll come right off whatever you don't want it on. I stamped the eagles first because I didn't want to have to rub off exactly, the space for an eagle that it was going to, be positioned at, so. Okay, let's see, we'll go for something like that. See, I didn't like it, like right on those eagles right there. Maybe in the background that's okay, but see that little variation right in there? Where it happens over, the trees, it could represent snowfall or something like that. It's a bit of a big one right there. I don't know if I'll take that out or not, but anyways, that is the process right there. It was just very little. I didn't apply too much. It was pretty effective in terms of kind of spray pattern right there. So, kind of step, I don't know, is that step 1 or I don't know, step 3 or whatever. Kind of that initial inking and stamping of imagery, basically the dye-based inks, are on there, and then maybe step 2 is the bleed-proof white. Step 3 will be the gel pen work, and then step 4 will be some pigment ink. All right, but yeah, that's a little bit tacky. I can see some of my finger. See that black right there? That's still a little bit sticky down here in terms of some of that black ink. And see, in these darker areas, and that blue that I applied down here, like on the edges right in here, where all that black was applied and tapped and tapped and tapped and tapped, the pulp of the paper became fairly saturated with that ink, so it really needs to dry a little bit more. And then I stamped over those wet areas with, really wet image. So that's why those areas right around on here are going to take a little bit more time to dry. Well, not taking too bad. I could probably wait about a half an hour and it'd be fine, but I'll get back to this, and I have a feeling that the blue inks and whatnot will kind of dull a little bit in terms of the variation on how they dry, the variation of inks on here. I didn't use too many Marvy ones. Marvys tend to stay fairly bright, but the other brands tend to dry fairly kind of dull looking. A little bit frosty, I would say, okay? That being said, what I'm getting is a spraying of the scene will bring it back to this level of saturation and depth. Okay, so let's wait for a little bit for this to dry. Alright, I'm back a few hours later, and this scene is no doubt dry enough to do what I'm going to do on it, and also to remove some of those little bits of the Dr. Martens that I think, I don't know, are a little bit obtrusive, to the overall design. Like that one little dot got right on the head of that eagle, and we don't want that, so let's just scratch that right off. This is a scratch knife that I'm using right here, but you can use anything. A little X-Acto blade or something like that would do well, but it just comes right off. This paint really dries beautifully on whatever it's been applied to, and it dries really fast, so once it hits the surface, it's drying quite fast, and therefore it's not soaking into the paper. Okay, now I don't know, there's a couple really large dots like right here and here. I think I'm going to leave it. I think that looks okay. But anyways, I think for the most part that it looks like it represents stars to me, but we do have some of that texture, of course, on some of these trees. Now, I wasn't going to take the time to mask those off. That's not something that I want to do. So it'll just have to represent snowfall or something like that in this setting. And I think it'll blend in with kind of what we're going to be doing now. All right, now, what I was talking about earlier about doing some kind of variation on this composition or theme. By the way, this ink dried very dull. I might just turn down my exposure on my camera too, so it looks a little bit darker than it is. But when I spray this, okay, all of that deep saturation should come back, and it always does. So I guess I can say it will come back with no problem. All right, so white gel pen. Okay, this is a Signo gel pen, and okay, let me see what I can do here. I'm trying to think. I want to add some like strings of lights to some of these trees around here without it making it looking too corny. Now I could just do these little dots, but if I do it in these strings, I'm trying to think of how I would do it. Like, I want it to look like, I don't know, like draping, like one would do on a apply to a tree. So this is a black gel pen. I'm wondering if I could, you know, kind of put the strings. I'm trying to think of how I'm going to do this, and really if I do want to do it to all of them. I don't know if I do. It might be overkill. I'm thinking about on some of the larger ones, like this one here, maybe this one. I don't know, every other tree maybe. These strings of lights. And okay, I think I'm going to do it with this black pen, and then I'll put the little lights on these strands. That's, I don't know. And we can do it without the, you know, the wire, but I think I'll do it with, just so I can kind of stay consistent. All right. Let me just stop talking about it. I'm kind of wondering. That's why I keep blabbering on and on. Whenever I'm talking too much, just, I don't know, a lot of it's instruction, sure, but an explanation, but you know, sometimes I'm not really quite sure of a direction something's going in, so I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud. Okay. I can't see this very well. I can kind of see it a little bit. A lot of it is I'm just kind of imagining, you know, some of the draping of the lights. All right. All right, I kind of see it, kind of not. It's really I've drawn these little lines in here as little guidelines. I can kind of see it a little bit, and that's all I really want. It's kind of a reference point for me. Let me see if I can show it on the video, if it'll show up at all. I don't know if you, yeah, there we go. Can you see these little lines I drew in here? There it is right here, here. Okay, now I'm going to follow that with my white gel pen. I don't know, we can do colored lights too. Maybe not. It's this kind of bluish color scheme. Let's not go with colored lights. Okay, so I'm just going to go like this. I'm finding my pen here is, I think that ink application was so thick, it's almost acting like pigment ink that I'm drawing into. I might have to go over some of these a few times. Now, I used to use these pens called white paint pens, okay? Instead of a gel pen, and that white paint was so thick. That would be my ideal medium for this, because this white gel kind of dries a little bit darker. It's not as opaque as I would like here. So these dots aren't the stark white I'd really want. Okay, now here's the thing. I'm going to be drawing these as it gets farther down the tree. I'm going to be drawing these dots slightly larger, because these trees are supposed to be going back into perspective, okay? Meaning, you know, the closer to us, the larger the objects are, okay? So these ones right here, I'll space them out a little bit more, and I'll draw them a little bit larger. Yeah, see that? They're not as, you know, brilliant light that I'd want. I might have to do this in a two-step process, and that's add some down, and I might spray it, and then add some more right on top of it. Sometimes you get a little bit more opacity that way. But I think as far as the design goes, I think that looks okay. And see, I'm kind of trying to make it look really draped. I don't know, in a somewhat realistic kind of fashion, you know. It's like hanging on there. All right, let's take a look at some of these other locations on here. I think I'll do some of this in time-lapse, even in my non-time-lapse video. I know doing these little dots isn't like really engaging, you know, entertainment. Okay, let's see. Some of this I can't see at all, but it's kind of providing me a little bit of practice and before I get into my edition with the white pen. If you add some of this white pen and you don't like something, you can always remove it. You can just buff it out or scratch it out, whatever you want. Okay, closer, smaller little lights. We'll really make these lights glow a little bit more, or a lot more, with our white pigment ink later on. Now, I'm someone that's always saying, you know, just, you know, I always think it's a good idea to make do with things that we have, but it's in instances like these, I do wish I had my white paint pen. I haven't used this white paint pen since, I don't know, since the gel pens came out. White paint pens were really great, but they would have a tendency, if you didn't use them for a while, to really kind of clog up. It's like metallic. the silver and gold pens, sometimes if you don't use them for a while, the paint inside goes into solution and it really separates. You see the binder and the paint separate, so you see this clear area and, you know, all the paint below it. So I don't know. I guess if you don't look at them as you know, real long-term product, then that's fine. You know, it's like, okay, this paint pen's going to last me you know, a year or a year and a half or something like that. I guess if you use it all the time, it's not, you know, it's just one of those things. I mean, something, you know, we're all crafters, you know, we got a lot of media sometimes that we buy and then, I don't know, we never use. You know, we see it at the store or demoed or something like that. I'm trying to get through and utilize a lot of my things these days. Papers too. Alright, so anyway, there's another kind of hanging drape, you know, lit tree. Okay, and I think this one right here, maybe. Maybe that'll do it, you know, I think that'll be good. Have the 3 trees. Kind of draping it like at the top, you know, just someone getting very lazy and, you know, just throwing it over something. Okay. Let me test out some of my other pens here. Not all white pens work the same. You know, several of the same brand that you bought at the same time, but they, you know, they act a little differently. Okay, this one seems to be a little bit more opaque. The opaque and the more translucent sometimes are good because you can use them in conjunction with one another. Sometimes you want a lighter dot, or, you know, one that's going to not be quite as apparent, obvious. Then you can use that one in those areas, darker areas. And then when you want one that's really light, then use that. Alright, just a little ornamentation like that. This one is more apparent here. I might have to draw some of these a little bit larger and more opaque just to make it a little bit more obvious, I think. Oh, this looks like garland too, which is fine. It's kind of using lights as garland. Yeah, this gel pen, these marks that you use, they will dry darker than what they look like when freshly applied. I don't know why. It's like all the reverse type things. Dye-based inks tend to dry lighter than what they look when they're freshly applied until you spray them. And the light on darks dry darker looking. Okay, that looks a little bit better there. You can see more of that draping. And let's go back into here, make it a little bit more obvious, where the lights are a little bit, you know, larger, stand out, patterned than that random application of splatter paint. problem with adding this gel pen too, see when I go over my previous little dots, it's just sitting on the surface, so it's kind of, you know, kind of scratching some off, so it's like, you know, taking one step back to, you know, go 2 steps forward. Okay, something like that. Alright, some of these are really bothering me. They're just not light enough. Here we go. Okay, that's coming around now. Maybe if you have some kind of pen that, you know, leaves you with a, you know, kind of a raised little dot, that might be interesting too. Especially for, you know, the theme of this card. And those raised little bits would be pretty interesting. Okay, so there's our ornamentation there. Okay. Alright, sorry. I've never done this before, so I'm realizing I need to make some of these stronger here. It's just not, it doesn't look like, you know, draped enough. Alright, now there's some drapery in the back of the branches too, so I need to add some of that going on in the back. Okay, here we go. You can really see it here because this area is much darker, you know, than some of these other areas, I think. So it just stands out more. Okay, let's use this also. Oh, gosh. I suddenly realized what I need to do, I think. And that's use the bleed-proof white on a brush and to paint those little dots in. Okay, I'm going on with this white gel pen and adding a little snow on some of these branches. Yeah. It's typically on the top sides of some of these branches that really stand out. Okay, add some to your leafless limbs too, like this. Kind of start at the trunk and then just kind of do a little stroke away from the trunk. I'm doing a lot more on this than I thought I would. I think it looks pretty interesting. It's giving a little bit more dimension to those trees. Having that highlight on them, like so. So you can see it in the darker area more than you can kind of the top. There's less contrast up there. Okay, now let me see if I can find that that dot. Yeah, I put it right there. That was the that area right there. I can see that little tiny hole that I put right there. I'm going to try to do kind of a North Star type of thing. So I did my down. Most of this is going to be doing down strokes. Okay. Even at the top of the star, so I turn, that star, this paper around accordingly, okay? So for a horizontal based format, I'm going to try to make the horizontal strokes a little bit longer, okay? If it was vertical, I'd make the vertical ones longer. So this is just kind of going in and reiterating kind of the format, okay? It doesn't have to be a lot longer, but so I'm just kind of doing this little tick like that, okay? I'm not going like this and up. Again, it's kind of more of the sweeping motion, like a pendulum, okay? So it's like that and like that. And you don't have to. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be too. Scared to do that. I mean, if I get some of that down, I don't look at it. It'll just rub off. I can try it again. Okay. So here's my kind of an intermediate or a secondary little strokes in between to make this 8-pointed star. And these little ones are shorter. So this is the third one that I've done in recent scenes, and I'm getting a little bit better at it, I think. The first one's a little bit, I don't know, a little chunky looking. But, I don't know, that looks okay. Okay, so, alright. I am going to use this. Let me see if I have even a brush for this. I think this paintbrush right here might do it. I might even try a dip pen. I haven't used a dip pen, and I've never used it with something like this bleed-proof white, but I don't know. Let me see if I can use like a glass dip pen. Pens and writing and things like that kind of fascinate me in theory. I have never done that. I have such a respect for calligraphers. That's not something I ever really even tried to do, But I do have some pens that I've collected over the years. Let me see if this one will work. I don't even know if it works with this type of paint here, but it's probably going to dry so fast it, might not work. But this is one of those little spiral dip pens. Yeah, it's too thick. It's not even going to work with this. I'm going to have to go with a brush. It was worth a try, though. Yeah, it's not happening. Alright, let me try it here. I don't have really good brushes. I don't do a lot of painting or anything like that, so I don't know what the tip's going to be on this one. This one's can't even read that. I think it's a 6. No, it's a 4. Oh, sorry. This is what I'm doing here. Get some of that Dr. Martin's bleed-proof white on the brush. Alright, let me see if I can get this on here. Hopefully it doesn't dry on the brush so fast that I can't get, you know, these little dots down here. Okay, actually it's working. It's just so much more opaque. And I do want these. I do want these little lights hanging on the trees to be kind of the subject of the thing that's, you know, somewhat the focal point. It's the theme of the setting, you know. So therefore, I don't want them to be an insignificant feature. Okay, let's see here. Put some more of these like this. I just realized there was kind of that, you know, draping, but these ones were all going like that. So let me kind of mix it up a little bit. Look how much lighter that is than here. So hopefully by doing this here, when I apply the pigment ink over the top of it to try to make them look like they're glowing, it'll just, you know, the individual lights will just have so much more impact. Otherwise the pigment ink might just kind of make everything rather obscure. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I've done this type of technique before, but not, I don't know, quite in this type of composition right here. You know, like where they're all on like kind of a close proximity to one another. Usually it's this star kind of, you know, or stars out in the sky, and I'll apply some of that pigment ink to a few of them, but, you know, we'll see how it goes. I'm kind of putting in these other little strands here to make, you know, because we should probably be able to see through, you know, some of these branches. There, you know, there's another side of the tree, so I'm putting it in some of these other little areas. And again, I think if I did it on all of these trees, I think it would be too much. I don't know. Tempted to put it on one more, like over here, to kind of balance things out a little bit. Yeah, maybe not. I don't want to compete with the North Star there. Oh, so I did that in gel pen. Let me just kind of add a little bit more opacity to the middle of that. Alright, so I think that should do it. As far as that step goes, gel pen and more of the Dr. Martens. Okay, so let's have some fun here. Really bring the piece to life, I think. In terms of kind of having this illumination and glow to the those lights. All right, now I might need to spray this first. Oh, why not? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and spray this. And I shall be right. Okay, I don't know if you can tell, hopefully you can, but the colors are a little bit more kind of deep and saturated. But I needed to do that spraying at this point in time because I really needed to affix that paint and gel onto the surface right here, because I can apply the pigment ink right over the top of this and it'll still do the effects that I want. And it's because I'm not applying a big thick slathering of pigment ink. It's just a very thin layer, and it'll apply right over the top of the acrylic spray. And then, after that I might need to spray it again to affix the pigment ink kind of sandwiched in between layers of the acrylic spray. But that being said, now I have to wait for the acrylic spray sealant, okay, which is a Krylon UV clear spray. And that'll take a little bit of time here. I don't know, I'll give it half an hour or something like that. Just to, I don't know, it's just so it's not so kind of tacky to the touch, right? I gave it a real thin spray, but it's still a little bit tacky. So I'll want that to dry before I start doing my last step. All right. All right, yet another break. I think, yeah, this is all completely dry. And let's see what we can do with some pigment ink here. Okay, now this, I don't know, when you have this just like this, I'm talking about the strands here. Okay, now that could be like popcorn or something like that on these trees, but let's try to make them glow. All right, this I really recommend this as a technique to anyone dealing with anything that has to do with lighting. It could be on word stamps or anything like that, but just the ability to add kind of a soft element to your scenes, or not even scenes, just stamp pieces, is really kind of a formidable touch that you can add to something. Everything's always crisp, so from a textural standpoint, things can get full of texture, and but you don't often see an element of softness, visual softness, okay? And that's where this really comes into play. All right, let me see if I can let me see if I can do this, but if I can remember to keep this one within the field of view here. But what I've done is I've inked up my Q-tip here, and I've blotted off quite a bit of it. Now, at this point in time, my pad is getting a little bit drier than what it was in the first few months of use. I went out to Arizona, and this thing kind of dried out a little bit, I think. I don't really mind because it was a little bit too wet, and I'm usually not stamping out imagery in it. I'm using it like I do here. So having it a little bit drier is, actually isn't too bad. It's not a bad thing. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just kind of adding a little bit of this pigment ink right over the top. See where that gets that little bit of glowing type of look? There's a diffusion, right? and it's because I'm adding this light application of thin ink in the same hue, okay, color as the source of light itself. So the source of light is supposed to be white, so adding white in a diffused application, soft application, a very thin application around it, gives the appearance of this glowing type of situation, okay? So let's see if we can get that on there. Maybe I should add a little bit less. Okay, no, here's one of the things. This, well, I was just about to say this dries darker than what it looks like when it's been freshly applied, but I did seal this off, so I don't know what it's going to, what the end result is going to be. If it will dry darker or not. I don't know if it's drying darker just because it's drying, and it becomes less, it becomes a little bit more transparent than what it looks like when it's been freshly applied, but maybe that's because it, when I'm usually applying it, it's usually applying it directly on top of the dye-based ink, so I don't know if some of the dye-based inks are soaking into it, I don't know, as it slowly dries. But okay, let's take a look at the difference between this side and this side. I mean, that side's a little bit more diffused, right? I wouldn't say it's brighter, but there is more light around it. Okay, so looking at that, looks kind of weird. So let's extend some of this a little bit here and there to make that a little bit more irregular. Let's have some of that light on some of those branches and things like that too in the background. Okay, just so it's not so just hovering on the, you know, the strands, the string of lights too. Let's put some of this light reflecting off, you know, some mist in the air or something like that. Okay. A little bit more kind of diffusion, okay. So it's supposed to be light, right? That is being influenced here. And so therefore, when we're doing that, we're saying that there's this kind of moisture in the air, probably, or sediment or something like that, and it's that light is reflecting off of those particles, illuminating them, okay? If there's no light, there's nothing reflecting off of it, so you have, you know, crisp, nice crisp imagery and whatnot, because you don't have that light reflecting off of it. But where you do have light, let's add that in there. Kind of gives it a little bit of atmosphere too. Look at that. Okay, this is looking better. I'm getting the hang of it. Okay, so I'm making it a little bit more irregular. Okay, here we go. So I'm putting a little bit more here, rather than having it completely uniform, okay? As a matter of fact, let's go back and remedy that. Let's put a little bit more here, and you know, just kind of, I don't know. Let's say there's a strand of lights down here, you know, too, so we can have some of this light coming in from the base like that. Maybe that tree right there is being affected. See that, you know, coming in like a bit like so. I don't know if this is supposed to be, you know, some trees, you know, in a landscape or something like that, you know, with a house nearby. I see it as being out in nature or something like this, and, you know, these lights are kind of more of a, you know, a fantasy element within the piece. Kind of a whimsical thing going on out there. See, this is kind of bringing those little areas to life like that. Yeah, there you go. A little bit more irregular. I kind of like that in there. Okay, put a little bit of lighting down this way or so. Actually, this one's getting real close to the trunk, so maybe not. Yeah, look at that. Alright, so let's see what we can do on this last one right here. These would represent kind of more the LED style of lighting. I like actually the warmer, kind of incandescent bulbs. Not great for energy consumption, of course, but I don't know, just kind of a warmer light. But this, from a thematic standpoint, seems to fit in pretty good right in here. All right, so let's take a look at these lights right in here. Okay, let's see. That's a pretty true representation of the lighting in here. I'm referencing my camera exposure right now. Okay, so let's take a look at this North Star here. And let's add some of this pigmenting. That's how it looks right now. I think that looks okay, but I can really kind of hide my my pour strokes here. If there's any calligraphers out there watching this, I'd be really embarrassed with some of my strokes in there, but I can't do what you guys do. Calligraphers I'm talking about. They do really awesome work. Alright, you see that? Kind of has that glowing look now to it, right? And I went lighter than what I think I needed to do, okay? Okay, so, let's see here. Let's kind of make a couple of these other stars a little bit glow. Let's have this little kind of element of kind of a movement, I guess you could say, using I was looking for this paintbrush here. See, it's really dry here now, just from that little bit of time that it's, sat there. The Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White is really, really fast drying. Okay, so let me do something right here. I'm going to try to make it look like there's these little, kind of like a, well, it wouldn't be a solar, well, I guess it'd be a solar flare. I guess the North Star is a star, but, not coming from our sun. But I'm going to have these kind of little emanating, that's the word I'm looking for, emanating little flares coming out from that star, I think. Just to create a little bit more drama and movement, maybe. Okay, I don't want it to be so apparent, but You're wondering, what am I talking about? I'm putting these little dots in here that will kind of carry out the theme of that little glowing light. I don't know. You know what? Okay, so from a thematic standpoint, I'm seeing this North Star up here. Okay, and we have some of these. See these larger dots that I drew in here, or painted in there. I'm going to make those kind of the same type of glowing little touch. So maybe what it is, it's like, here's the North Star, and it's, there's this star kind of light coming down in here. And maybe that's the thing that's, creating the, the illuminated trees or something like that, or, it's like starlight, on these trees right here. So it's kind of creating a little bit of a connection between that star, the focal point of the scene, and these secondary little features of the strands of light. Okay, so doing this really delicately because I'm not quite sure if that paint is quite dry yet. I mean, it's not real dry, but I'll just have to do because I'm not waiting again. Another half-hour break. Can you see that right there? Those little glowing spheres, so it kind of creates that little connection that way. Now, some of these I put in the background, but some of them, what you do is you put them in front of your objects, so it's a little bit more dimensional that way. It's like going kind of in back of things and in front of things as well. Okay, so maybe the ones that are kind of going off in the distance, there's a little bit less of a glow, of course. Okay. That. But then the ones that get closer to us, it's kind of going in that theme of perspective, Things that are closer to us maybe have a little bit more of a larger kind of glowing little sphere like that. See up here, I'll make it a lot tighter. About like that. Okay. Alright, so there we have it there. So this little kind of emanating little balls of light like that. Okay, let's see if I could do something here too. See on that bird's wings, the eagle's wings, it's right in the back of the, or in front of that light white there. So let me see if I can add a little bit of light to that wing there just to kind of influence it. It's like capturing some of that starlight on there. Isn't that kind of fun? So see that right there? I mean, that little, I don't know if you can see it. That little touch on that side of that bird, I think it makes that bird look a little bit more dimensional. I mean, you can see that its wing, its black wing underneath that pigment ink like that, but it puts that light onto that wing like that. And I can do it because there's white behind it. If I put this white on that right there, it would look awkward because it's dark behind it. But if you have a little bit of white behind it, you can still add that in there. All right. I think that is it. That's my little, I don't know, whatever, Christmas with the Eagles? No, that'd be a terrible name. I don't know what you'd call this one, but I don't know. It came out pretty good. You know, I learned something from it. You know, you have to kind of, I'm getting that glare here. Let me put this underneath here like that. You have to kind of, I don't know, go with multiple layers of your gel pen in there. Unless you buy one of these right here. This cost me $8, and this kind of lasts me, I don't know, I think it'll last me like 20 years, because my last bottle did, and I've been using that quite a bit. I think I still have some of it, but that's a pretty fun medium to utilize in there. Splatter painting, of course, and you can't get that kind of variation with a gel pen. Although I do use the gel pen a lot, you know. I just don't have so many little detailed little speckles like that like I would have in something like this. But anyways, that came in handy right in here. Those little dots really show up in there doing it that way. As well as these little spheres, you know, these emanating spheres from the background and so on and so forth. So it's a fun little technique. And like I said, that glowing little light in there like that, around these strands of lights and also around that star there, really add a nice effect, you know, in terms of having something from a different textural standpoint introduced to the scene as an overall. Everything else is very crisp, as you want your impressions to be generally, and that adds in a nice textural contrast. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the scene. This little whimsical kind of twist on an existing recent kind of technique and composition for a different look. And of course you can do this in any kind of color scheme you want in the background. It might not look as, I don't know, kind of wintry, Christmassy or whatever, but it'll give you a different look, and I think you'll get kind of dramatic results no matter what kind of color theme you create your piece to exist in. So thanks for watching. If you like this video, hope you like, share, and subscribe. Thanks as always for tuning into the Stampscapes channel.